What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Art of War. We have an exciting stream for you today as we are going to talk about the brand new Grey Knights and Black Templar codexes. Jack and I have been on all the different content for that, so if you want to check out the codex reviews for Black Templars and Grey Knights, they are on this very channel, and we dove into all the different data sheets and detachments and kind of our overall thoughts. But since that point, we have actually been able to play a handful of games with our favorite builds and tried a lot of different ideas. And we're going to kind of provide some of those insights here and then talk about where we think we'll be going with both these factions.
Yeah, so Black Templars and Grey Knights are both armies that we love very much. Black Templars was the first Marines that I really started to play.
Grey Knights is mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's neat to have them both out, for sure. And I think just starting out, right, on a baseline level, I think both the armies are quite good, right? I think... an optimal Black Templar Gladius, and you're currently on...
Warpbane Task Force.
Warpbane, okay, so...
Both task forces.
We'll cover the fact that none of these detachments are actually from the actual codexes themselves. We'll cover that, we'll get to that. But both of those builds are quite good, I think. The Black Templar build has a lot of damage in it, whether it's shooting or combat, and very nice. You don't require any outside buffs to do that damage, so every unit is just self-contained. You have some good rules in there. Very solid army. And then the Grey Knights can do a lot of damage because you get that full rerolls to hit.
It is also an army that happens to reroll a lot of stuff. You have the Grandmasters, the full rerolls to hit wound and damage against monsters, vehicles in combat. You have Warpbane giving you reroll ones to hit all the time, or full rerolls if you're in hollowed ground. And then you have a Purifier data sheet that also then adds on reroll ones to wound all the time if the opponent's on the objective, full rerolls to wound. So the vast majority of your army is also rerolling almost every die. And you can watch yesterday's game against the Space Wolves to see how damn strong that is.
That is pretty crazy. That's pretty nuts. Yeah, Black Templars have like more rerolls than Ultramarines, like legitimately. Yeah. The more I've played with the Marshal Castellan combo, the more I play with the Castellan, the more I realize I just want 3 of them, right? They're 60 points each. Take 3. They do a bunch of damage. Fairly self-explanatory.
Give your unit full rerolls, like, wow.
And really if you fail the leadership check, you just hit on 2s rerolling. So
it's a shame.
Watch out for
It's
that.
a damn shame.
Yes. So the Castellan's great, and their unit just full rerolls to hit. And then the Repulsor Executioner turns out also pretty great, and also full rerolls to hit all the time.
It's like ludicrously easy to get the full rerolls.
Yes. So both of the armies kind of get by on just having full rerolls to hit on everything.
One of the things about playing an elite army is that you typically won't have as many trade resources, and this is certainly true for Grey Knights to an even greater extent than Black Templars, is you can't really just slowly trade out your army over the first 2-3 turns because you'll have nothing left in the late game. You just don't have that many units as a whole. So every unit that you bring to bear needs to be able to ideally punch above its weight class. And so something like 5 Purifiers for 125 points popping out of a Razorback, that's a package that punches up significantly more than their points cost. And that's what elite armies are really trying to build around. We see this in your Black Templars. You have these packages that are usually 4 Sword Brethren.
4 or 5 Sword Brethren with either
Intercessors.
Helbrecht or a Marshal Castellan, right? You get 3 of those. And then you have Assault Intercessors with either a Castellan or the Emperor's Champion. And they hit pretty hard.
And how many points is that roughly, that package?
So it's around 250, 270 it's 270 for 5 and Marshal Castellan, it's 245 for 4. And then it's 250 for 5 with Helbrecht. So it's roughly in that 245 to 270 range. And they punch up pretty severely, and they will always kill something they're on points cost or less, like every single time.
Yeah, you were saying that they could almost potentially kill a knight, and especially if the knight doesn't have an invuln, they should more often than not.
Yeah, so if the knight does not have an invuln and they pop +1 AP, the knight just dies, period. It just dies. It takes 36 damage, it's gone. If they're taking a 5-up because either you couldn't get the +1 AP or they had a 5-up invuln, then it does almost exactly enough damage to kill it, and then they take 6-up, feel no pains, right? So they'll probably live on a wound or 2. That's crazy for a unit that requires 0 buffs in order to do any of that, right? It just charges and does its thing.
The equivalent for me is 10 Purifiers, in particular in Warpbane. They just step up. Oh, the knight's on the objective? Cool. Here we go. Bunch of random nonsense shots that'll chip off some amount of wounds, and then they're doing 18, 20 damage in combat. So if you just find some amount of damage to support the Stormbolters and Purifying Flames, you're killing a knight.
Yes. That's pretty crazy.
That is pretty darn crazy. So both of these armies, I think, we'll get into their weaknesses, but in terms of their strengths, they're majorly efficient. They can punch above their weight class. And I think both you and I have gone for relatively transport-heavy MSU variants compared to running larger bricks. Like, there's no 20 Crusaders in your list. There's no, for me, there's no large Terminator squads taking up 400 points.
Yeah, in Black Templars at least, I think you can make more of a case for it in Grey Knights. Although I agree that MSU with full reels to everything is tight. I think in Black Templars, there's just like no reason to go big units. You don't really need it for damage. And there's like 0 defensive buffs in the army. So you're just going to lose the 20-man. You're just going to lose the 10-man at basically the same speed you would have lost to 5-man. Yeah. Right? So I don't think there's any incentive to take larger units. I think the biggest unit you're going to be taking would be a 5-man plus a Martial Castellan. And that unit is pretty hot.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty hot. Because you just charge in, you kill something, you tag something, they fall back, you get back into a transport, or they charge you, you fight them on death and kill them. Or they come near you, you react and move away. Like, it's a little more annoying to interact with that unit than you would have wanted.
Absolutely. So I see there's a couple super chats here. We will answer all of them kind of after we do our talk about the Black Templars and Grey Knights. And if you are joining us here, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that massively helps us grow. In addition, leave a comment below letting us know how you're feeling about Black Templars, Grey Knights. What are you most excited for? What are you putting on the table? I see a lot of people talking about how they're playing some of the new detachments. How you feeling about those? We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to see more content from Jack and I, well, guess what? The War Room has, I believe, 3 battle reports for each army. 2 or 3.
2 or 3, basically.
2 or 3. And so if you want to check those out along with the post games, which have all our thoughts on the units and everything that's been working well for us, check out the Worm at theworm.vhx.tv and that 3-day free trial. There's also access to our international Discord community that has Grey Knight and Black Templar channels where we're hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely. Been in there, been chatting. It's it's a hell of a community.
Heck sure. Yeah. So now for Black Templars here. You've mostly been sticking with the Gladius. What do you think are other options people could be testing here?
So the Stormlance is interesting. I don't like how few of the rules that you use in the Stormlance, legitimately.
Not mounted. No mounted here.
There's no mounted. There's no real fly vehicles. So you're not using like 3/4. You literally can't take like any of the enhancements, right? And yes, a flat 6 reactor move is great, and advance and charge all the time is great. And that totally might just mean you take it. But I think the Gladius offers a little bit more, right? That fight on death is massive into melee armies. It's huge into melee armies. And then the fact that you can advance and shoot pretty easily, but you can also give Ignores Cover +1 AP to a Repulsor Executioner, which means that instead of bouncing off, it does a bunch of damage. You can still reactive move in that detachment. So there's like a lot of stuff you can do in the Gladius. And you can only do like 1 or 2 things in the Stormlance. So I think the Stormlance is interesting, but the Gladius I think is better. I saw Tatters there mentioning the Vanguard detachment. I hadn't really thought about that, but I'm going to take a look at it after stream, I think. Because
it does have that crazy anti-charge one. Remember where you can, you can make a charge impossible and your opponent just fails.
Yeah, you can just move. You might even be able to just like go into a transport with it.
You also have a Blade Driven Deep for that excellent infiltrate unit. Infiltrate a combat unit ready to hit your opponent turn 1.
And it's a little bit of a defensive mechanic too, because you get stealth over a certain range. So I'm definitely going to look at it. That's a good idea. I hadn't even considered that, to be honest with you. But given how self-contained all the buffs are in that army, like I didn't find myself using the Lance +1 AP like at all. There are times you will use it. If there's mass toughness like 4 or 5 or something, you're going to probably use it in there, or something where you need the AP to go to AP3. So you're not going to use it, it's just a lot more niche.
Yeah, because you're taking advantage of the VOW system, which predominantly the game is mostly that like T6 and above. I'd say like the units you really want to trade your Sword Brethren units into.
Yes.
So you're getting +1 to wound anyway.
Yeah, and I mean the VOWs, unfortunately there isn't really a choice with the VOWs. They give you 3, they give you 1 like true stinker, and then 2 pretty mediocre options, and then 1 very good option. And so you just kind of take the good option.
Am I not going to take +1 to wound against all the durability in the game? Like, come on, what are we talking?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Instead, I'm going to take reroll charges against Psychers. Like, come on, man, what are we doing? Oh, precision against Psychers too.
Oh no.
Oh.
Be a shame if you didn't kill my unit and just my character. Wow.
Yeah, so you're going to take the +1 to wound basically all the time, and so that means you need Lance a lot less actually. So it's interesting. You get a lot more room to experiment. Unfortunately, the Black Templars detachments are some of the worst in the game. Like, actually just some of the worst in the game. I would have loved just a generic, like, hey, this just buffs all your units a little bit and it's good at combat detachment. Like, here you go.
It honestly feels like very early on 10th edition in the first couple codexes, where I think Necrons is an excellent example, and is similar in this way, is that maybe 4 of the different detachments in Necrons are really restricted to only a couple data sheets, and then the synergies within aren't powerful enough besides Canoptic Court to really elevate the army. Because you look at Obeisant's Phalanx. When you look at that detachment, it's supposed to be buffing Lich Guard, Triac Praetorians, Triac Stalker, and like a couple other things. And that's pretty much what you're looking at. But then you mostly take it to -1 damage on the Silent King and other vehicles, and you don't take those data sheets because they're just not good enough.
Yeah, the only data sheet on there that's like remotely good is the Stalker, and it's like a skirmish tank. It's not build an army around it tank.
Yeah. Then you look at your detachments. There's one based around the Chaplain guy.
Chaplains and Justiciars, which I'll be honest, I don't really want to take them. They're kind of bad.
They're good as like a one-off thing.
Yeah.
They're good as a one-off thing, but not as the only. Every unit has this. You don't need every unit to fight first. That's excessive. Then you look at the Ancient detachment. Have you seen a Space Marine Ancient this edition? I don't. Has any list actually had a Space Marine Ancient? Any Space Marine list?
I think you could have made the case like a year or two ago to take the Terminator Ancient in 10 Assault Terminators with Tannhauser's Bones. I personally like the Chaplain in Terminator armor over the Ancient. That was the closest it has come to seeing the table, is being like a third string like option for a niche unit in a niche army.
The only Ancient that you see in Space Marine in Astartes armies is the Grey Knight one, who's not a character, just an upgrade in a Terminator unit because it gives you +1 of
Sanguinary Guard.
and it's free. And Sanguinary Guard.
Sanguinary Guard, it's a free upgrade in the unit.
That's the only way I think they've made Ancients work.
No, they've hold on. Is there an Ancient in the Company Heroes? I think there is.
There's a Bannerman, yeah.
There's a Bannerman. Woot!
But
yes.
It's a separate character? No.
No, Ancients are trash. Like actual trash. It's shocking how bad the Company or the Crusade Ancient is. That thing sucks and has no reason to see the table. That's a bit unfortunate, right? Because if they just said character, the Ancient detachment would be kind of interesting. But unfortunately, they gatekeep a solid, okay set of rules behind very specific niche units. That's just not going to see the table, unfortunately.
It's funny because some detachments have this, where there is a broader keyword like character you were mentioning, and then there's a more particular one like Ancient. They could have had most of the rules interact with character, and if it was Ancient as the character, you then get a really good buff.
Yes.
I like that system a lot more than you have to run this one particular thing or this set of data sheets to try and get these rules, and some of them are worthless.
Dude, the Crusade Ancient could have been so cool. Maybe, all right. I was thinking, wish listing a data sheet that will never see the light of day. But let's say you could only take one in your army, but he can take enhancements and stuff like the Emperor's Champion. Mm-hmm. And then he just gives some kind of buff to every unit within 12 inches. But if he dies, then like every unit within 6 has to battle shock check or something. Every friendly unit.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or every friendly unit.
They're sad the banner went down.
Yeah, they're sad. They're very mad about it. But the unit that killed the banner, like you get +1 to hit against it or something. I don't know. But something. That would have been neat. That would have been super neat. But him giving his unit fight on death on a 4+ is a rule that might as well not exist. And there's a lot of that, actually, in the codexes. There's quite a few rules in these books. There's enough rules to make a quite good 2,000-point army in both Grey Knights and Black Templars that will be like A tier and see very good competitive play. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of it. Like, you can't really make a 3,000-point list in Black Templars that's any good. Right? Because you just...
The onslaught list.
Exactly. And now that's not like super important for how good it is in 2,000 points, but
the point you're making is the broader diversity of the army.
Yeah, it ranges from like there's good units and trash units, and there's like nothing in between.
We saw the Grey Knight tier list. If you haven't checked it out, it came out on Tuesday, and for the most part, there's an upper echelon of auto picks and tournament staples that are going to be every single archetype. Doesn't matter what detachment you're playing with Grey Knights, they're just going to be there. You have to take these data sheets. They're so good. There's like a couple that are fairly niche to mediocre, but you could run them and it doesn't cripple your list. And then there's a huge chunk of units that are, what is going on? This does nothing. And we're doing the Black Templar tier list next week, and I have a feeling that it's going to be quite similar breakdown. And this is pretty rare because if you look at a lot of the armies, especially ones with broader rosters, it's pretty balanced when you look at it. There's like a couple auto picks and tournament staples. There's a large chunk of the units in like solid, and then there's a couple things that are bad. These two books seem to have the greatest, I guess, span or dichotomy between the really good units and the really poor units that are pretty much never useful.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. It feels like when you read through the rules, there's like a little green button and a little red button next to each of the data sheets. Because you read some of the good data sheets and you're like, wow, that's really good. Like on its face, apparent, first time you read it, wow, that's really good.
Well designed, it has a role, it synergizes with a lot of rules. This is awesome.
And then you go to the next data sheet down and you just see a little red sticker next to it. And you read it and you're like, this unit has no reason to exist. It's twice the price it would need to be for me to run it because it doesn't do anything.
It's literally wasting space.
And you just like snap back and forth between those as you read down the codex, and it's kind of weird, honestly. As you're right, that's not usually how the codexes are designed.
It's very rare.
Yeah. So that's odd. Like the Grey Knight, the one that sticks with me, right, is the Grey Knight detachment that has a stratagem for crit 5s.
Great strat. You crit 5s is something you want across the game.
Strat, except one little snag. Grey Knights have no lethal or sustained hits in their whole army.
Besides the brother captain leading a unit.
Yes,
that's
the brother
the
captain,
only way to get lethals.
That's it. That's the only way to get lethal hits.
And then silencer technically has sustained.
Yes.
Which is a garbage weapon.
Why would you have that stratagem in okay, there is a detachment that gives you lethal or sustained hits, but that strat's not in that detachment.
Just like there is one detachment designed around giving lethal and sustain to your different units, and that's the one that doesn't have the crit 5 strat. It's as if they wrote all the stratagems in one go and then actually just mixed them up. Either randomly put them in or just started placing them.
Yeah.
I swear to that's how it feels to me.
That's how it feels because crit 5s in an army with no lethal sustained is like, and yes, technically there's slightly a little lethal or sustained there, but by and large, like none. It feels like a joke strat, right? Like I'm writing a detachment for you. You get crit 5s, but no lethal or sustained.
Got him.
Got him. I don't understand that. I read that and then I had to like go back through the codex. Like,
what did I miss on the war gear?
Did I miss some lethal or sustained in here? No, I didn't. It just feels like that, right? Half of the rules just feel useless and half of the rules feel very good. And that's fine competitively, but it does feel like GW has written an army, put it in front of me and said, you're running this. Because, man, if you look at the Black Templars people are writing, they're not that different. They're fairly similar. You take the good units in the good detachment, and it's 2,000 points.
And it slams.
It slams. Stuff. Very good. Super good list. Very fun. But not super distinct from each other. You take the Sword Brethren, you take the characters that are very good, and you put them in the Sword Brethren, and you take some other units like to skirmish, you take some guns that reroll hits, you're done.
And for Grey Knights as a whole, I think there's a greater amount of diversity in Grey Knights in terms of the detachments than there is in Black Templars. I think Banishers and the Brotherhood Strike detachments are both better than the next best Black Templar detachment. Like once you get past Gladius, I think those two are still better than
by a significant amount,
the Codex ones. But Grey Knights have the issue where you're such an elite army, and most of the other detachments don't provide enough of an offensive benefit to make you efficient when you try and trade into durable things, whereas Warpaint does. And right now the meta is so heavily skewed towards durability, towards high defense type units. If you're not able to, if you swing down in any turn with Grey Knights and that turn collapses, you basically lose the game off of that. You can't really afford a bad turn to happen with Grey Knights.
Grey Knights are insanely elite, yes, but they're good.
But then Warpaint is like, oh, you did stand in front of me. Cool, you're dead. You're just dead. It doesn't matter. The Grandmaster is so much ludicrously better than it used to be. That data sheet is insanity. I started off like, did this need to go up 15 points? Did it need to? And I'm like, having played it a bunch of times, like, okay, I understand. I understand why the free stratting, the rerolls, just the meltas on having a bunch of meltas now. It's a huge damage increase to the army. Wow. That data sheet is insane. The Purifier data sheet is also insane. But those two things are going to be carrying a lot of the offensive output and the ability of this army to punch up. And I think it can, 100%. But you have to run those data sheets, which feels very restrictive. If you're a player who loves Paladins, who did get upgraded, I played them a bunch of times, and even though the data sheet is good in a vacuum, it struggles against the type of offensive output that exists in the meta right now. And it ends up trading down, I found, in a lot of cases.
Interesting.
I still think the 4-man, I really like that they did the 4-man option. They did this in Sword Brethren too.
They did this in Sword Brethren also because the sergeant of the Sword Brethren is now just a Castellan, right? He always was like the Castellan in the unit, but that means I spontaneously, from having 0 Castellan models, now have 3 that I can use, which is great.
That's one of the subtle things I really love about both of these codexes, is there's a little bit, when you play an elite army, especially an army that doesn't have cheap units, like Grey Knights lost servitors. There is, besides enhancements, there's nothing that can fill that last like 60 point or less gap. I guess Inquisitorial Henchmen, but in the Grey Knight book itself, there's not a lot of options. But all of a sudden, now that I can run a 4-man Terminator unit, I can just chop 40 points off a unit, and now my 60 points goes to 100, and I get a whole extra unit instead.
That's huge for an elite army.
This is something that existed a lot more in 8th edition, and to some extent 9th edition as well, and it started to go away in early 10th. I really much prefer, now they got rid of war gear costs, okay, it's much easier to design lists now, and that's fine. But the unit sizes, I think they can do a lot more to play around with those. I could even see a 3-man turn for an elite army like Grey Knights, 3 Terminators. I could even see something like that.
Paladins used to be 3-mans back in 9th edition?
Yep, they used to. You could take a 3-man, and you could take solo apothecaries with hammers and stuff. I think for Custodes, I feel the same way. I want a greater diversity in the unit sizes you could take. Yeah. Like maybe I want to take 3 wardens, 3-man warden units with a character in each of those. And this can punch up into those medium class things, but I don't have to spend 400 points on a unit. That will trade down into a lot of things.
Having a 400-point hammer and anvil unit is great, but being
need that.
being entirely made out of 400-point hammer and anvil units means your opponent can put 5 scouts on an objective, and you just have to be like, here's my 400-point unit to go deal with that, and then your opponent just tees off on them and then does it again.
So if we look at like design-wise, I think that is one of the things I would hopefully encourage Games Workshop to take away from these books, is for elite armies in particular, really playing with the unit sizes a lot more.
Yeah,
I think that will help a lot.
That would be pretty interesting. Great. Black Templars doesn't suffer from that as much because our hammer units are a lot cheaper, right? They don't run you like 400 points. They run you like 250. So they're these really efficient packages that just run in and do damage and are efficient to like everything. When the first time I rolled out a Marshall and Castellan unit, I was like, oh, I'm sold on this. This is just so good. Like, this just does its damage. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to spend CP. It just goes in, it does its thing, it kills you, and it moves on with its life. That was so nice, right? The old Sword Brethren units used to do more damage. Kind of. The Marshall Castellan units are pretty crazy. But, like, with Oath, with Lance plus 1 AP, they would do more damage than they do right now. Basically, right? It's close enough that, I mean, if you're dead, you're dead, right? But you don't need that anymore, right? Like, you lose Oath, but then you don't need Oath, right? They replace it with other stuff, which is good because most Space Marine units, a lot of Space Marine units are not good without Oath, right? You have to find the ones that come with their own rerolls. You have to get the Ballistas, and Ballistas aren't that great. You have to get the Lancers, and I wasn't a big fan of Lancers before, but I'll run them now.
Eradicators.
Eradicators, I suppose, and that's it. Right, that's it for units that come with their own rerolls. I mean, you have Blade Guard, right? Storm Guard, no, because you don't have Oath anymore.
Well, not yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
they reroll ones, Jack.
That's right.
Come on, man.
Sorry,
Post
my
is
bad.
eligible.
So it is good that they introduced some self-sufficiency into combats there, right? That's very good because otherwise you'd have like Sword Brethren go in hitting on 3s, no rerolls, and if you didn't Oath the target, I promise you, it sometimes died. It don't always die. But because they're so self-sufficient now, you have these melee packages that can get the job done without requiring Oath. So the army is sufficient without Oath in a way that it wouldn't be if they just took a Space Marine army and removed Oath. So I think that's good. I think that's very good. It means the army is built very differently. I wish we had 4 oaths to choose from and we could build our list around multiple different, oaths. Oh, this oath, this list is built around an oath that does this, and this list is built around an oath that does that. But unfortunately, we don't have that option.
I think there's a decent amount of anti-synergy that exists. As I was talking about, we had mentioned the stratagems and the crit 5s being misplaced in Grey Knights. One of the other ones that stands out to me is that Brotherhood Strike gives you reroll 1s to hit, 1s to wound when you come in from reserve. That's a great roll. But Grey Knights don't have very many delivery mechanisms to get into combat, where you can start threatening the misplays or the fallback stratagem. I'm forgetting its name. You need to get into combat first. There's no Drago here, no +3 to charge. There's no pluses to charge anymore. That's it. You're ripping 9s, or more likely, you're using Rapid Ingress, and then you're walking up. But if you use Rapid Ingress in this detachment to do so, you don't get the reroll 1s to hit, 1s to wound. It's like, it feels as if there is a real disconnect between how the army actually plays on the table and how you can actually utilize the units, and how the designers thought the army was playing.
Yeah,
because that's a big miss. In GSC, for instance, their rule when you come in from Host of Ascension lasts until, or is the army rule, lasts until the next fight phase, your next fight phase. So if you rapid them, you still get it in both shooting and combat in your turn. That should be true for this as well, because you have to use tools like that.
Yeah, Rapid Ingress for a Deep Strike army is just...
It's bread and butter.
It's bread and butter. Exact same thing I was going to say.
Just like, you have to use it. I'm not walking 5-man turn. I'm not walking 5 inches up the table at you. I'm not ripping 9s.
9-inch Deep Strike charges. Like, you're just not doing that.
You just lose the game.
Yeah, there does seem to be... I think there's a little bit of... It feels like these weren't focused on as much. These weren't cooked as long as other codexes.
Part of it was cooked.
Just to be honest with you, like, the World Eaters Codex, I think, is much better done. Like, just much better done.
All the Chaos Cults. You have
all the
Death Guard,
Chaos Cults.
Thousand Sons, World Eaters. We have a lot of different books that have come out that have a lot of different builds. You even look at Chaos Knights, an army that is notorious for being a mono build. It has a War Dog list, which isn't even in the meta right now because you have Big Knights. You have Lord of Dread style. You have the Infernal Household style. You got actual styles within a book that typically monodimensional.
Yes. And, like, listen, the World Eaters book came out very recently, and it's very well designed, right? It has like 4 or 5 good detachments. Most of the data sheets have a reason to be there. So, like, yes, there are data sheets that are better than others. That's always going to be the case. But at least the ones that are bad aren't like, they're bad because there's other better things.
Yeah, there's competing roles. It's bad because there's something that does it better in this meta.
Yes, exactly. But that care does not feel like it was put into... And yes, Death Guard is too good right now, but that can be adjusted, right? And then there's still like 5 different builds in that army, at least, right? It's just bursting from the seams with builds. Same with T-Suns, right? T-Suns have a lot of... They are falling a little bit into mono build right now, but at least they're very intricate with how they approach the game. But the data sheets that are not A tier in both of these armies are F tier, right? Like, there is no reason to run the Black Templar Terminators.
The Grey Knight Chaplain.
None.
What is going on? Why did he lose +1 to wound? He was actually a solid character, I thought.
Yeah. The Stern Guard are god awful. They're so bad. The Grey Knight Rhino.
It really insults me because we just got 3 Chaos Cult books that all have amazing rhinos, and the World Eaters one is probably the worst out of them, but it still has a great, really interesting rule, which is if your opponent gets with a 9, you get to disembark from it, which can result in all sorts of tricky plays. Thousand Sons get what, +1 to hit, +1 to wound on psychic weapons if the rhino hits?
They shoot you, yeah.
And then Death Guard gets reroll wounds, and I get, if I'm wholly within 6 of it, with my infantry unit, I get a 6 of Phenopane against mortal wounds specifically.
It's useless. Like, actually, a rule.
What is that rule? How is that a thing? What is that?
So, it does feel like there are some things in these codexes where a lot of care was put into it, but it does not feel like the whole codex had care put into it. It feels like a very half-baked codex, honestly. And it's unfortunate, because that's what you're stuck with, right? It's not like it's going to be bad, but it is going to be kind of bland.
is going to be very focused on doing a particular set of things, and that's what you do, and you do it in the different archetypes, and that's awesome. But then there's not really a second gear. There's not as the meta shifts, you're still going to be pretty much running that same thing, is how I feel.
And listen, I love Black Templars.
I love Warpaint.
Listen, they're fun, they're good, and crucially, the units that are good are the ones that I wanted to be good, right? It's the Emperor's Champion, it's Helbrecht, it's Sword Brethren, right? That's my favorite thing to do. And that's fantastic, right?
20-man Crusaders weren't your thing?
But no, I hated that list. I acknowledge that it's good in certain niche scenarios, or was good in certain niche scenarios, but no, I'm not. I'm good. But at some point, if I get tired of that and I want a little break, there just isn't anything else there, right? And I feel like also in about 2 weeks, I'm going to stop thinking about lists because I will have figured it out. And you can't do that with a lot of different armies, right? You can't just figure out the list and move on. There's always like little moving pieces, right? How do I adapt to the meta? Oh, maybe I'm trying this, and actually, that isn't quite working out well. I want to do something else. But that's because you have options, and you don't have options here. C'est la vie.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into some of these questions. We've got a bunch of super chats here. We'll start off with Redrum with a €5 super chat. Thank you so much, Redrum. Where do you think those factions will end up for teams? What role will they take, and what builds will be strong? Great question.
They actually have similar roles in teams, which is, I think they're just like a 12 to a 14 machine, right? You just try and win your games by a solid, decent amount. But I don't think any of them are like pairings. Like they're not, World Eaters or Eldar or something where you get the right pairing and they just kill it. Mm-hmm. But I do think they're very consistent into a lot of things. And I think, Black Templars at least have the damage to just put someone down if they try to get a little too funny with it, which is very helpful in teams, right? You need to be able to tell your opponent, hey, calm down. Because if you mess around at all, you're going to be going back to your team with a 2. So you just chill. And that's very helpful. How you feeling about Grey Knights?
I think Grey Knights will have a bit more diversity in teams within their list. I don't think you have to play Warpaint specifically in teams. I think Warpaint will be the best singles list because you said the word consistency, and this is true of your Gladius build. You just need to be consistent in singles, whether that's the damage output that you do, the amount of units that you have, what roles you have in your army. You need consistency in all those different areas, and Warpaint has that in spades, whereas the other ones are a bit swingier. Like Banishers, I played the game against Jack, and one of the turns I passed every single leadership test, and I was like, awesome, big damage, sustained, felt great. Then I had the follow-up turn. I think I rolled 6 of them and passed 1 of them.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, I just don't have a detachment rule. This is sweet. Yeah. So you can't really afford that. However, in teams, the 10-man or the larger Terminator style that was previously very popular in Teleport Strike, I think it has more play when you don't have to worry about World Eaters, Forge Fiends, or some of these army, or like triple Gatling Cannon, Chaos Knight Despoilers.
Yeah, or the Thunk drones out of
Death Guard.
Death Guard, yeah.
I think if you can tailor your matchups a bit more, Grey Knights will have more builds available. So I think in teams, you still won't have as much consistency as Warpaint, but you can take advantage of you could build a list designed around Mists, and there are some armies that literally struggle against trying to play around
Death Guard hate Mists. They hate it so much.
Slow
I
armies,
get you in contagion range. No, you don't. I'm gone.
You don't.
Bye-bye.
I'm gone. So yeah, if you play against an army that doesn't have the speed to really, force you to be in areas where the Terminators have to stay on the board, then you can take advantage of it. So I think Grey Knights will have a bit more diversity in teams, personally.
I agree with that. I think it's largely comes down to detachments. Black Templars have no good detachments in their Codex, and Wrathful Procession is better than it was, for sure. The buffs it has stack better with vows and the way the army works. It's still not a good detachment. It still just has, no good strats, no good enhancements, if I remember correctly, which, I may or may not, but it's still not that great.
In teams, a lot of kind of compositions involve some amount of denial armies, scoring armies that are trying to slow down a stat check and just move block and stuff. And then for Grey Knights, if you just have a couple armies that are like Sanctic Spearhead, where it's 6 Dread Knights, 1 Storm Raven, and a couple other vehicles, and you just jam into those things, if they can't do anything about it, they're just going to get run over. So I think Sanctic Spearhead will have more play in teams as well.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Kevin Banu, thanks so much for your 5 Canadian super chat. Last time you said that all Space Marine supplements should lose Oath. My question is, what would you give to the Dark Angels to replace Oath?
That's interesting.
That was John, who was in the last live show. He said that it would be really interesting to do what they did for Black Templars, take away Oath, but give a different, all the time unique rule or set of options to choose from.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Dark Angels? I don't know. I mean, my first thought would be like Wrath of the Rock's detachment rule, which would be -1 to wound. They already have that, I guess, in Wrath of the Rock.
You just have to look at what is their lore based around. So secrets, so something regarding probably manipulating stratagem cost is probably how you would do that in the game. Something like that, so you aren't forced to run captains or Azrael. You would probably look at something that involves plasma weapons, since they're famous for Dark Age plasma weaponry. You would look at a Ravenwing buff, a speed buff for the army.
Yeah, I feel like there definitely would be something where they're like, give something to Deathwing, give something to Ravenwing, give something to neither of those, right?
Yeah.
Greenwing. And then you give like a specific buff for that. Maybe Ravenwing can advance and shoot. Deathwing can advance and charge. That might be too strong, but whatever. You can fine tune it.
Yeah.
And then Greenwing can fall back, shoot, and charge.
And it would be interesting because right now they have detachments that are supposed to be around each of those subsections of Dark Angels. But if you had those rules, if you had rules in the army rule itself, where I could actually run some amount of Deathwing, some amount of Ravenwing in the same army, and based on the army rule I've chosen, or option I've chosen, I can actually utilize them in this matchup really well.
Yeah. I do think if all of the supplements lost Oath, you would start to see a somewhat homogenous build of these are the units you take because they are the units that come with rerolls.
Or hit on twos.
And that's basically it. Like if you wanted to take a tank that hits on threes, no rerolls, you probably don't. So they would have to, design the army with that in mind, right? They might have to go back in and change a bunch of little data sheets, but that's not the end of the world, right? The Space Marine Codex has been out for a while.
Yeah, I think Marines, one of their biggest problems, we talked about this in the last stream, is that the Gladius and Stormlance are vastly better than pretty much anything else that they've come up with since that point. And that means that a lot of Marine builds just gravitate towards those two things and often run similar data sheets.
Yes, and I don't think that means that you should get rid of the Gladius or the Stormlance because there kind of just aren't that many detachments other than it. Like, Blood Angels are fine. Blood Angels use Angelic Inheritors and Liberator Assault Group. So they're fine. They don't even use the Gladius, honestly.
Yeah.
And then Dark Angels at least have Wrath of the Rock, if you wanted to run that. So they have their own detachment. Black Templars, nope. Space Wolves, nope. I don't know. What are the other ones? I don't think there's... But they don't have any other detachments. They have to run the Gladius because that's what they have. That's like a detachment that you can run that's good. At least Space Wolves have like a second stringer, like B, C tier detachment you can run. I think
Beast Slayer.
Is it Beast Slayer?
Yeah, it's Saga the Beast Slayer.
But like Templars don't have that. So if you take Gladius away, like you need to give them a detachment to run. Otherwise, their army's going to drop like 3 tiers immediately.
I think we've also reached the point in the edition where they've seemingly run out of different ideas that they want to implement in the game. And so they're playing around with a lot of like weird things. Like Black Templars and Grey Knights in their codexes have a lot of rules that are like free Overwatch or free Heroic Intervention or Overwatch on 5s with these Storm Bolters or like stuff that just doesn't matter. It's just taking up space. It's not doing anything functionally useful in the game.
There's a lot of like...
You have ways to do it anyway.
Reroll charges and like, for example, get out of a transport, charge someone. What I really want is to battle shock check them on the way in. That's strength right there.
Or if they fall back, they take a desperate escape. It's like, I'm killing them. Well, this is never going to come up.
Yep. There's some rules that just don't like matter in 40k, and there's a lot more of those in this. Yeah, you get +1 to hit on the charge also, but the units I want to take hit on 2s, so you have to go digging for stuff. It is a whole thing.
We got Matt here with his super chat. What are your thoughts on new Votann rules and units previewed on Warcom? Thanks for your super chat. It seems very interesting. I won't be able to give you a full breakdown until those rules are released, but when they are, I promise you I will be talking about them non-stop.
Yeah, they seem cool, though. They seem really cool.
They do seem cool. I'm really glad that Votann are getting new models. They all look super interesting. I know I love the StarCraft-looking steel jacks trudging along, so I'm going to be painting up those models for sure.
Of course.
Sailor Forest, a member for 4 months. Thank you so much for joining at the Worm Gold. Just joined the stream. Have you looked at the Wrathful Procession detachment? That's the Grotmus detachment for Black Templars with vows and the new data sheets. Any thoughts?
It is better. It is much better than it was before, but it still just lacks power. Honestly, there's a certain amount of 40k where you just need some amount of raw power. And once you've got that level, once you've hit the level of raw power of like abilities that are good, things that are just generally good in 40k, then you put like the cool stuff on top. And to be honest, Wrathful Procession doesn't really have cool stuff on top either. It has +1 strength or +2 move, +1 advance, which is neat, but it doesn't have the backbone of like a good set of rules to fall back on, and that really does hurt it. Although I will give it a shot on stream at some point.
All right, very cool. We've got Bubblefart69 here and joining us. Thank you so much for your super chat. Been a silent listener since January when I started playing 40k. Welcome to the Warhammer community. Coming from Magic the Gathering and liking to play control style with explosive turns. I also love combos. Don't know if it's a thing in 40k since I'm new. What army should I look into that would fit my play style well?
Well, interesting. I'm actually getting back into Magic recently, and current deck I'm looking to take to a local big event is Jeskai Control right now. So the control style with combo style would probably be something like Thousand Suns. There are a lot of armies where you want to synergize a bunch of different rules and then hit your opponent with them, and Thousand Suns are definitely that.
Eldari Warhost comes to mind.
Warhost also is. And a control style is... You can play a control style with both of those very well, where you just kind of manage the pace of the game. If your opponent tries to rush you down, you have a bunch of damage. So they just can't do that. And then as they try to play the game in a slow way, you try and just chip incremental advantages until their army falls apart, and then you hit them. So something like Eldar Warhost or Thousand Suns might be a good idea.
Genestealer Cult Host of Ascension stands out as well.
Yeah, that's a combo
it is
army.
Literally,
it's not a control army, but it is a pure combo army.
It's a huge combo army with explosive turns, and then it controls the late game.
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea there. Host of Ascension.
So you have a wide variety of options for this. There are other armies that are definitely combo and control oriented, but those ones stand out in the meta right now. And then we've got another one here from Mr. Redrum. Thank you so much for your €5 super chat. Have you seen the War Master final? Holy moly. Also, when Grey Knight versus World Leaders on stream seems like a spicy matchup. I have not watched that final, but with your recommendation, I will definitely check it out when I have a bit of time. And for Grey Knights versus World Leaders, definitely. I think the next World Leader game is up against Orcs, maybe?
I think so, yes.
I think it's a smashy combat fest.
Yeah, well, we're going to go with the Lord of Skulls versus Morkanauts.
Oh my god, the Morkanauts are getting on the table. I know Michael's been
playing
the
Lord of Skulls in the new Codex. I think he's quite good.
Yeah, he has his whole detachment, right?
No, he has a vehicle detachment you can take. I think you still take the Berserker Warband.
Okay, sounds good.
-1 damage in combat on that dude seems really good. You also have 1,500 points of other army, so...
But we'll definitely look at that matchup, and you're a Worm Elite member, so towards the end of August, I'll put up the poll for the following month for the Worm Elite members to vote on the next matchup.
Sweet.
For this month, the Worm members, the Elite members, voted for Chaos Knights versus Emperor's Children. One of John's favorite matchups to play, and Nick is going to play the Chaos Knights for that one.
Okay,
it's going to be fun.
Listen, Nick on a smashy aggressive army is always very fun because it's like he's wearing a suit that is just tailored for someone else. It just doesn't fit. It scrapes on him in the weird ways. He doesn't know how to make it work. It's great.
We got Ricky Chow here. Thank you so much for your $5 super chat. Can you assuage my anxiety about Votan Indirect possibly becoming a thing? Also still waiting on my Springsteen song Siegs. Thank you so much for your super chat, Ricky, and you're not going to get me to sing. I promise you that.
Yeah, it's not happening. I'm sorry.
You can maybe get John to do it again, possibly Nick, but it's not going to be me. Now, I have no idea about the Votan Indirect Fire, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that it wasn't going to be dominant, because guess what? The only dominant Indirect Fire that we've seen recently, I guess, Death Guard are kind of running it, but it's not dominant in the sense that it's the firepower itself is broken. It's the fact that it gives afflicted to those units, which then combos off a variety of other rules.
Well, it's also the fact that Mortarian's Hammer can give contagion range to whatever the heck they want anywhere on the board, and then they shoot them.
Yeah, so they can give out the -1 save plus also the -1 toughness, and that matters a lot for the breakpoints on that weapon. But before that, it was basically guard, and then that got smashed up. So chances are it won't be, but it always could be. You never know. This could be the next woo.
That's my problem with indirect, really, is that it doesn't ever have to be an issue, but it always could be an issue. So we'll see. I don't think it will be, though. They seem to know that indirect is a problem, but it always could be an issue.
It always could be. You never know. But frankly, I think they just need to redesign philosophy on indirect as a whole and switch it from a damage type of unit to a debuffing type of unit. It's not really designed to do damage. Similar to aircraft. Aircraft shouldn't be about damage in 40k. They should be about buffing your army into certain targets. Indirect should be about debuffing enemy units.
Yeah, or killing like 10 guardsmen over 2 turns, right? That's fine. That's a level of indirect where you force your opponent to put real units on objectives rather than like cheap cultists on objectives. That's fine. But as soon as you start killing
triple
real
exorcist
units,
was insane.
not fine. Not fine at all.
Miracle dice, just you're dead. Jakitsma, thanks so much for your $5 super chat. How do you feel about the new Black Templar Gladius Task Force list, and how will it do into the Death Guard?
I think it does well. I think it does well into Death Guard, legitimately.
It doesn't care about -1 to hit and -1 save. It doesn't matter if you're back in transports.
That's true. That's true. You have a lot of reactive moves, which Death Guard do not like. You have a lot of long-range anti-tank firepower, which Death Guard very much don't like. I would say if you wanted to do well into that, you probably want 3 like laser platforms between Lancer and Repulsor Executioner. Just very long-range firepower that can sit back there and just poke tanks off the board consistently is very good. And then when you get into combat, you just kill whatever you touch, right? Which is very good. -1 damage is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. You'll still like -1 damage is not minus infinity damage. It doesn't make you damage 0. You will still do some amount of damage. Right. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if you swung into a unit of Terminators with -1 damage and still killed them. Right. A squad of 3. It's not that crazy, honestly. So, and also if they charge you and you fight on death, they can't -1 damage that. A lot of lists aren't running -1 damage too. If you're running Hammer, they don't get it, for example. So then you just go in, you kill their infantry, you kill their vehicles. I think you do pretty good. Obviously, they have a lot of units, right? And they're very, very good. And their raw power level will carry them through a lot of matchups, and it means that they're not like you're not going to just run them over. Yeah. But I think you can do as well as anyone else into them for sure.
Sonny Cal John has a great question here. He says, "Is now a good time to get into 40k, or should I wait for 11th edition? I'm leaning towards Custodes or Ultramarines as my first army." So the thing is, you're always going to find another excuse to delay. As soon as 11th edition comes, then you'll be like, oh, I'll wait until the Codex releases, or I'll wait until this next balance status slate, or I'll wait until these models are released. You'll always find a new reason to delay beginning. The best time would be to start now. Pick your favorite models, get used to painting, get used to the hobby. If this is your first time playing a tabletop game, buy whatever Ultramarine models you like. Don't even worry about what's competitive right now. Put that out of your mind. All you do is get excited about the game, start reading some things about Ultramarines and their lore or Custodes, grab a couple of the models, start getting used to painting them, make sure that you like it, and then once you're ready to start moving towards playing games, you slowly build up a 2,000 point force, and then you go from there. Do it in baby steps. If you go all in at the same time, it can be overwhelming. I know a lot of people, they grab their first 2,000 point army, but then they have this pile of gray plastic. They haven't painted anything before, so now they have to look at all the tutorials. It's much better to start slow over time, in my opinion.
I agree.
You don't want your hobby to become, work. You want it to be the hobby, to be fun. So that's what I recommend is get your feet wet now, start small, and then as the game continues to develop, you grow with the game.
Yep, and it's a lot easier to build incrementally than it is to just, as you said, buy 2,000 points. And then the meta shifts, as the meta always does. And then you're like, wow, I had this big shock, and now I already need to start changing it. Whereas it's a lot better as if you just kind of grow with how things are and then eventually have an army. If you're starting out, I would say probably Custodes is a good start because it's a much smaller range than Ultramarines. and it's a much lower chance that when you pick up a full army eventually, right? Like if Custodes come out, it's very unlikely that every one of your units is going to be bad, right?
Yeah.
It's very likely half or more of your army is still going to be meta relevant, and then the rest of it will be meta relevant again. That's how 40k works. It comes in cycles. But with Ultramarines, they have like legitimately 80 units. You never know, right?
Yeah, Space Marines are a tricky army because of the depth of their collection. So I agree with Jack. I think Custodes is easier to start with, and it's also easier to paint, I would say.
Yes.
And so you'll be able to get into the hobby, enjoy it, and you could always expand to Ultramarines. You're like, damn, I love this game. I love Warhammer. I'm excited about playing it. I have a great local gaming group or online community where I can talk about the game. Let me go ahead and let's get deep. Let's get a second army.
Yeah, and I agree with Red Rum that Space Marines being a good starting army is a myth. I think the way they are good starting armies, they're easy to paint, right? Big flat panels. They're a lot easier to paint. But they have so many units that it gets a little overwhelming. There's a lot of choices in that army that are just not great. Or the things that are good just come in and out of the meta very, very quickly. If you're going to run Space Marines, I wouldn't run Ultramarines. I would run some kind of chapter, and I would pick, like Black Templars, for example. If you pick up, Helbrecht, Sword Brethren, that sort of thing, they're chapter-specific units. You have a core that will be good for like ever.
Yeah, Blood Angels is Dante, Sanguinary Guard, some amount of Death Company. You're like, cool.
Right. You're like set. If you run Ultramarines, anything could be good at any point in time, and you have no idea.
Could be the vehicles, could be the infantry, could be combat, could be shooting. It's going to vary widely.
Yeah. So if you like Dark Angels, listen,
Inner Circle
Deathwing Knights,
Companions, yeah.
Inner Circle Companions, those are a good place to build. But yeah, Ultramarines I think are a little too wide.
Redrum with a 5 at Euro Super Chat. Thank you so much. John's rant after the Wrath of the Rock game sums it up well for Space Marines 1 detachment that wraps the army. Gladius, same with Wardens and Custodes. Sometimes there are auto takes. I think Ultramarines can still play. Like John loves in this case, Dark Angels, but I think Dark Angels can actually play the Stormland style alongside Gladius as well. Yeah. John has put that on the table. But once again, it comes back to like there's 2 main options, and that's really a failing of the diversity of the Marine detachments. Unfortunately, Ironstorm flew too close to the sun early on and is a really negative playstyle experience. So that got yeeted.
Yeah,
and
I'm not sad about that, honestly.
And then you have like the Anvil and Anvil Siege Force and First Company Task Force that kind of just don't have enough going on.
A lot of this, I think, is it appears that GW, once an army has hit, the win rate that they're happy with, they're just happy to leave them, which is fine. That's good, right? We want things to be a 50%-ish win rate. 45 to 55 is like the green zone or whatever. But I do think that it would be a good idea for them to go in and just tweak in their internal balance, right? The stuff that doesn't see play, giving some kind of buff. Stuff that doesn't really have a reason to hit the table, giving it a reason to hit the table.
And they did. Like with the Outriders, they upgraded their data sheet. They went through and picked out a couple of them.
Yeah.
The Intercessors can double shoot. So they did some interesting things. It's just, it's such a wide range. There's so many units that aren't doing very much.
Yes. And I think they can do that with a lot of different armies too, right? A lot of armies, I think internal balance is less important than external balance, but it is still quite important. And I think it could serve the game well if they just like went through and did like a big pass on all the armies and all the stuff that isn't seeing play, like give it some kind of reason to see play. Yeah. It'd be interesting.
Points drops can only go so far, unfortunately. We've seen this with AdMech.
Well, they also don't drop points on a lot of units, right? Like there's units that have been bad the entire edition and have not gotten any points drops.
AdMech is one of the prime examples of this. Is there's a lot of data sheets that just don't do literally anything, and they are just a body on the table. There's only so cheap you can make that.
Yeah.
Until it's too oppressive. You have too much stuff on the table. So I'm 100% in agreement. I've been advocating for a Grotmis, but for data sheets instead of detachments. That would be sweet.
Yeah.
You just go back in and each army gets, like 3 or 4 data sheets updated.
I mean, even just points drops on things that haven't seen any points drops would also be nice, right? But
Hey, the servo strike turret might get too good, Jack.
Oh my god.
It might get too good. You might have to paint one.
Oh, it got borderline playable one time.
I think we have. I think we have literally 0 of those. So if they ever got good, we'd have to actually build and paint them, or John would.
Yeah, well, you can have fun with that.
I don't think he would. He hates that model. Big Toe Conglomerate 40K. Thanks so much for your super chat. With many people running Chaos in a team's environment with a Grey Knights Banishers detachment with anti 4+ Chaos strat plus Purifiers that glow up be decent. It definitely is very good into those circumstances because you can take a 10-man Purifier unit and just be like, oh, I don't care how durable you are. I'm wounding on 4s rerolling.
Yeah, that is pretty neat.
Here, just take a ton of damage.
I do think that...
I believe it's ranged attacks, though, only. It's not combat, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's ranged attacks.
Either way, I think that you can do... It is tempting to look at rules that specifically say, counter this specific thing, and think that is the best thing to counter that specific thing. Whereas I think if you see a lot of chaos, what you can do is you can take units that are good to disrupt the play pattern that they're trying to do, or good at developing a play pattern that is good into that opponent, and that will get you a lot further than just taking the thing that says anti-chaos, I think. Because even against chaos, it's not like that great of a strat. It's like fine.
Yeah, because it's ranged only, so it's like, if it was combat too, okay, that's a different beast. But because it's ranged, like, yes, it's very good into demons because they're pretty much taking 4-up saves and you just drop a ton of Stormbolter damage on them and the Purifying Flame. But it has niche cases. It's not enough to change a whole matchup. On the other hand, there are rules that are enough to change a matchup. Grand Coven is a great example. That's the Thousand Suns, their primary detachment. It is a 4-up Phenopain strat against Psychic.
That's a big deal.
Okay. I played against it with my Grey Knights before the Codex update.
It's not fun.
It was not fun. It was not fun. Mutalith Vortex Beast of 4-up Phenopain is a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, I can. Yes.
Not gonna lie.
I had to play that matchup. That exact matchup I had to play at WTC.
Yeah.
It was great. I still won that game though.
That's a rule that it is strong enough to build around into teams in that type of matchup. So sometimes it is super powerful. I don't think the wounding on 4s with ranged weapons is that strong.
Yeah, you have to. I also saw plenty of times, like back in the past with Black Templars, right? People will be like, "Oh, well, if you play into Thousand Suns, you take the anti-psyker vow, right?" It's like, well, no, I know it says anti-psyker on it, but that does not mean it's the best option into them, right? Evaluate how good the rule is, and in that case, the anti-psyker one was pretty bad. It was not very good. Same thing as the current anti-psyker one, real charges into psychers. Woo! And so evaluate how good the rule is before you try and like tech into it to counter.
Yeah. So another question here from Sunny about finding a community. If you are in the Bay Area on the West Coast, the primary kind of organization for running events over there is Green Banner. So if you check out some of the events, they have a variety of leagues that you can join, as well as a lot of stores support their events. So that's the one I would check out on the West Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. But also just go to your local store, get games there, and then from there
start somewhere.
Yeah, don't try to jump right into like going to GTs with a 2,000-point army. You'll get there eventually, and it'll be great. You'll have a great time.
The game has a pretty steep learning curve early on because it's very different from probably pretty much anything you've played before. So you will lose games, but what you need to do is when you lose a game, you figure out why. Talk about why. What mistakes did I made? Fix them in the next game and keep going. And once you play, a successive amount of games, and you take that knowledge back into practice, you'll start to elevate your game a lot quicker.
Yeah. Also,
try and find the good players in your region. And you'll learn a lot from them.
The best part of 40K is the community, because it's an in-person game where you spend a bunch of time with people, and you don't get that by playing StarCraft or something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm attacking you.
Don't be attacking me, Jack.
I don't get that by playing Arena on my phone. Right? You don't get that kind of thing. Even though you get the competition, you get the deep thought behind it, you don't get the community. And the community is the reason I've stayed with this hobby for 13 years and I do not see myself quitting, is because it's how I see all my friends. It's how I like hang out with my friends. It's a lot of fun. So the community is the best part. So I think if you try to just jump right into big tournaments and immediately go right in and skip over getting a local community and hanging out with them, you're missing the forest for the trees. Like you're losing out the best part, honestly. Because going to a big event is fun. But going to a big event with the homies, that's so much more fun. You know, you have people to chat about, talk about how your games are going, you know, go out to dinner after day one, right? And talk about all your games. That's so much better. So give that, you're losing out on that if you try and jump over it. So treat yourself.
All right, well, that seems to wrap us up here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this discussion about Black Templars, Grey Knights, and then the successive ones that we've had. If you are here, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that massively helps us grow the YouTube channel. In addition, leave a comment below letting us know if you agree with our thoughts, disagree, if you have any other questions. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to see more content like my warping list in action, if you want to see Mr. Jack's Black Templar Gladius, as well as some other builds, check out The Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial, and on top of that, you get access to our awesome international Discord community, where there's a Black Templars and Grey Knights channel. And then even more, if you want to go deeper, if you want to really master these factions, I'm going to be doing a Grey Knights group coaching that's starting next week. And then Jack, the following week, is going to start a Black Templars group coaching. So we're going to go really deep on how to play the army into the meta, into the different armies in the game, and how to excel, really how to play it at a high level, how to think about it in a wide variety of scenarios. So if that's the type of coaching you're interested in and want to join a group that's focused on that, check that out on the artofwar40k.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see everybody very soon for more content. So long for now. Enjoy the WTC this weekend. It'll be streaming all over the place on War Games Live and plenty of other places. So a lot of 40K to digest and enjoy. Thanks so much.